The first time I realized my parents were capable of real violence was not when they shouted at me as a kid, not even when they broke my phone for talking to someone they didn't like. It was the night I told them I would reveal their darkest secret. Before we continue, please subscribe to this channel and write in the comments which country you're watching this video from. Enjoy the story. It started just 3 months earlier. My name is Ethan, I'm 23, and until recently I was nobody in our small town. Then, everything changed. A child went missing from a playground one rainy afternoon. Everyone was panicking, the police were searching, and I somehow found myself in the middle of it. I wasn't a hero type, no cape, no muscles, but I knew these streets better than anyone. While most people searched the parks and main roads, something told me to check an old warehouse at the edge of town. It was abandoned for years, but lately I had noticed strange activity around it. Lights at night, a padlock that wasn't there before. When I broke in, I didn't find criminals. I found the missing child locked inside a dusty room, crying and shaking. I carried them out, called the cops, and within hours, my face was on every local news station. People were calling me a hero. But here's the thing, my parents didn't look proud. In fact, when the news cameras left and the neighbors stopped clapping me on the back, my mom's first words were, "You should have kept your nose out of this." My dad didn't even speak. He just stared at me like I had done something unforgivable. I thought maybe they were just worried about me. But soon, I learned the truth. A week later, the police investigation revealed something disturbing. The warehouse wasn't just used for hiding one child. It was linked to a bigger network of illegal activities. I overheard a detective mentioning familiar names connected to people in our own neighborhood, and one name was far too close to home. One night, I walked into the kitchen and found my dad on the phone, whispering angrily, "The boy's a problem. He's too curious." I froze. My mom saw me in the doorway and her face drained of color. From that moment, the air in the house felt dangerous. My parents spoke to me less, watched me more, and every time I left the house, I caught them checking where I was going. Then I found the folder. It was in my dad's office drawer, under old bills and receipts. Inside were photographs, people I didn't know, cash bundled in rubber bands, and most horrifying, a list of names. The same names I had heard from the detective. And at the bottom, written in my dad's messy handwriting, was a date, next week. I didn't know exactly what it meant, but my gut told me it wasn't good. My hands were shaking as I closed the drawer, and that's when I heard my mom's voice behind me. "What are you doing?" I turned, folder still in my hands. "You need to tell me the truth, or I will." Her face twisted, not with fear, but with rage. She stepped closer. "You have no idea what you're getting into, Ethan. Put that back, now." I refused. "Number, I'm done. If you don't tell me, I'll expose everything." That's when I heard heavy footsteps behind me. My dad walked in, silent, holding something long and metallic in his hand. A crowbar. He didn't shout. He didn't threaten. He just raised it slowly, his eyes fixed on me, as my heart pounded so loud I could hear it in my ears. And in that moment I realized my parents were not trying to protect me. They were trying to silence me. I didn't sleep a second that night. Every sound in the house made me flinch. The creak of the floorboards, the hum of the refrigerator, even the faint tapping of tree branches against my window. My parents' faces from earlier kept replaying in my mind. The twisted anger, the way my mom's eyes darted to my dad like she was silently urging him to act, and then that crowbar. By morning, I was operating on pure adrenaline. I skipped breakfast, avoided eye contact, and left for school early, even though I didn't have class for another hour. But even the crowded hallways and loud chatter couldn't drown out the questions pounding in my head. What was the dark truth they were so desperate to keep hidden? And why would they rather hurt me than let it come out? It wasn't like my parents were model citizens. They had always been secretive, never letting neighbors inside our house, avoiding family gatherings, and keeping my childhood strangely isolated. But I thought that was just because they were private people. Now I wasn't so sure. At lunch, I sat across from my best friend, Mia. She could tell something was wrong immediately. "You've barely touched your food. What's going on?" she asked, her voice low. I hesitated. If my parents were willing to attack me to keep their secret, what would they do if they found out I told someone else? But Mia had been my anchor through everything, through the accident that made me a local hero, through the chaos of interviews and news coverage, so I told her, not everything, but enough. I told her about the fight, about the crowbar, and about my threat to expose them. She leaned in, eyes wide. "You can't stay in that house, Emily. That's not safe." I shook my head. "I don't have anywhere else to go." That night, when I returned home, the atmosphere was different. My parents weren't yelling, but they weren't pretending to be normal either. My mom sat at the kitchen table, flipping through bills without really reading them. My dad was in the garage, but the door was slightly open, and I could hear him pacing. I tried to slip upstairs quietly, but my mom's voice cut through the air. "Emily, we need to talk." I froze. She gestured for me to sit down. My hands were trembling as I pulled out the chair. "Your father and we've made mistakes," she began, her tone unnervingly calm. "But threatening us like you did last night will only make things worse." I swallowed hard. "Then tell me the truth. Whatever it is, I deserve to know." Her lips pressed into a thin line. For a moment, I thought she might actually say it, but then my dad appeared in the doorway, his face like stone. "No," he said flatly. "Some things are better left buried." Something in his tone made the hairs on my arms stand up. This wasn't just about family shame. It felt dangerous, like the truth could destroy more than just our reputation. I went to my room, but I couldn't shake the image of that crowbar. It wasn't just a threat. They were willing to go through with it if they thought I would talk. That's when I made a decision. If they wouldn't tell me, I'd find out myself. The next day after school, I didn't go straight home. Instead, I went to the library and started digging into old local records, police reports, news archives, anything. It took hours, but eventually I stumbled across something odd. A 22-year-old unsolved case, a burglary gone wrong, 2 suspects who were never caught, but the descriptions matched my parents almost perfectly. I sat there staring at the screen, my heart pounding. Could it be? And if it was I living with criminals my entire life without knowing it? But before I could print the article, I felt a shadow fall over me. I turned, and there was my dad. His voice was low, almost a whisper. "Close that computer, Emily. Now." The tension in his voice sent a chill through me. He knew exactly what I'd found. The room fell into a suffocating silence after my parents' chilling warning. I could hear my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Mom's face was pale, but her eyes were cold, calculating. Dad stood still, his hand still clenched into a fist like he was ready to strike again if I made one wrong move. I didn't answer them. I couldn't. If I opened my mouth, I might have screamed, and I knew that would only make things worse. That night, I locked my bedroom door and sat on the edge of my bed, shaking. I kept replaying the past few months in my head, the parade, the newspaper interviews, the smiling faces that called me a hero. It felt like a different lifetime. Back then, I had thought that maybe, just maybe, my parents would finally be proud of me, but instead their smiles at the parade had been fake. I saw it now. They weren't happy for me. They were scared that my sudden popularity would make people look too closely at our family. And the more I thought about it, the more I realized they had every reason to be afraid. The dark truth I had threatened to expose, it wasn't some small family drama. It was something that could destroy them. 2 years ago, I had overheard a conversation between my dad and a man I didn't know. They were in the garage, speaking in hushed voices, but I'd been hiding behind the storage shelf just out of sight. The man handed Dad an envelope thick with cash, and Dad promised something in return. At first, I thought it might be gambling or some shady loan deal, but then I heard the name. It was the same name of a man who had gone missing in our town 6 months earlier. I remember the chill that crawled up my spine even back then, but I had buried that memory, tried to convince myself I was imagining things. Until a week ago. That's when I found the envelope again, hidden inside one of Mom's old sewing boxes in the attic. It still had money inside, but it also had photos. Photos of that missing man. Photos that were never released to the public. That's when I knew. Whatever happened to that man, my parents were involved. I didn't tell anyone right away. I wanted to believe there was an explanation. But then, when Mom and Dad saw me with the envelope, they didn't ask where I found it. They didn't even try to lie. They just looked furious. And now, here I was, sitting in my locked room, realizing I might not be safe in my own home. I grabbed my phone and thought about calling the police, but something stopped me. If I went to the cops without proof they couldn't ignore, my parents might have me thrown out, or worse. So instead, I started planning. Over the next few days, I acted normal. I ate dinner with them, smiled when they made small talk, and didn't mention the envelope. But secretly, I was making copies of the photos. I uploaded them to a hidden cloud folder, set up with a timed release to a local news reporter if anything happened to me. I thought I was being careful. I thought I had time. But on the fourth night, just after midnight, I woke to the sound of footsteps outside my door. The handle rattled once, twice. Then I heard Dad's voice, low and sharp. "She's not going to give us a choice, Linda." My stomach dropped. The door shook violently as if someone was trying to break it down, and then, in the small gap under the door, I saw it. A shadow moving, and the metallic glint of something long and heavy in Dad's hands. A crowbar. They weren't just angry anymore. They were ready to silence me for good. My hands were trembling as I gripped the edge of my desk. Detective Harris's voice still echoed in my mind. "You're going to need to prepare yourself. This isn't just about you anymore." The air in my room felt heavier than ever. I stared at my phone. The screen lit up with an unread message from an unknown number. The text read, "Stop talking, or we'll make sure you never talk again." I swallowed hard, my throat dry. The words didn't sound like an idle threat. They felt real, the kind of real that keeps you awake at night. I knew the police were already involved, but every second that passed without action gave my parents more time to cover their tracks. I kept thinking back to that night, the night I became a local hero. People clapped for me, thanked me, called me brave. But none of them knew what was happening behind the curtains of my own home. That evening, I made the mistake of opening my bedroom door when I heard voices in the kitchen. It wasn't the usual mumbling. They were whispering urgently, their words sharp and clipped. I crept closer and stopped just short of the doorway. Mom's voice, "We need to get rid of it before they find it." Dad's reply, "I already buried one. We can't risk keeping the rest." My heart slammed against my ribs. Buried one? Buried what? I stepped back silently, careful not to creak the old wooden floor. I wanted to run in and demand answers, but I knew that would be walking straight into their trap. Instead, I slipped back to my room and scribbled everything down in my notebook. The time, the exact words, the tone of their voices. This notebook had become my lifeline. Every detail, every suspicious act, every strange phone call, it was all there. I wasn't going to let them twist the story. Later that night, I heard Dad outside. I peeked through the blinds and saw him carrying a shovel and a large black bag into the woods behind our house. The moonlight caught the shine of something metallic sticking out from the top. It wasn't a shovel. It wasn't a rake. It looked like a weapon. That's when I realized this wasn't just some family scandal. This was dangerous. If my parents were willing to threaten me with a crowbar in broad daylight, there was no telling what they'd do if they thought I was the only thing standing between them and exposure. The next day at school, I could barely focus. My best friend Emily noticed I was distracted. When I finally told her bits of the truth, careful not to give away too much, her face went pale. "You can't stay there," she whispered. "Not another night." But leaving wasn't that simple. I was 17. I didn't have the money, and without proof strong enough to act on, the police couldn't just pull me out of my home. That night, things took a turn. I woke up to the sound of my door creaking open. In the dim light, I saw Dad standing there, his face blank, his hand gripping the crowbar. My stomach dropped. "I told you to stop talking," he said quietly, almost too calm. "This is your last warning." I froze, my heart hammering so loud I thought he could hear it. But before I could say anything, Mom appeared behind him and pulled him back. "Not here," she hissed. "We can't afford another mistake." They left, shutting the door behind them, but the sound of the latch clicking felt like a lock on my own freedom. I sat there for hours, knees pulled to my chest, realizing that I was living with people who weren't just hiding a dark truth. They were the dark truth. And I knew, without a doubt, that if I didn't act soon, I might never get the chance. The living room felt smaller that night, like the walls were pushing in on us. Mom was in the kitchen, her hands shaking as she scrubbed the same coffee mug over and over. Dad sat on the couch, his face pale, his jaw tight, eyes locked on the TV, but the screen was black. No one had turned it on. I stood in the doorway, my phone in hand. The video of their argument with that man, the one who had come by last night, was still paused on my screen. My thumb hovered over the upload button. "You think you're a hero now?" Dad's voice was low, almost a growl. "I don't think. I know," I said, my voice trembling but firm. "And if you hurt me, if you keep threatening me, everyone will know exactly what you've done." Mom turned, her eyes wide and wet. "You don't understand what you're getting into," she said. "No, Mom. I understand exactly what I'm doing. I'm protecting myself. And I'm ending this." Dad stood up, and for a split second I thought he was going to rush at me. But then, he froze. His shoulders sagged. He looked older, smaller somehow. "You have no idea how many people we've kept happy, how many problems we've solved," he muttered, staring at the floor. "If you go through with this, it all comes crashing down." "That's the point," I said. A silence settled over the room, thick and suffocating. Then, in the distance, we heard it. Police sirens. Dad's head snapped toward the window. "You called them?" "No," I replied, holding up my phone to show him. "They called me. Turns out, when you win a bravery award, people actually listen when you report a crime." Within minutes, red and blue lights flooded the street. The neighbors peeked out from behind curtains. 2 officers stepped inside, their presence heavy and final. "Mr. and Mrs. Larson," one officer said, "we have some questions regarding a series of reported assaults and threats." Mom's lips parted, but no words came out. Dad didn't even try to speak. They were both escorted outside, the cuffs glinting under the streetlights. As the car doors closed, I felt a strange mix of emotions: relief, grief, even guilt. They were still my parents. No matter what they'd done, a part of me had hoped there was a way to fix things without destroying them. But maybe this was the only way. I stepped outside and watched the police cars drive away. The cool night air hit my skin, and for the first time in weeks I could breathe without feeling like someone was pressing on my chest. The neighbors started whispering to each other, eyes darting between me and the fading lights of the squad cars. I could feel their judgment, their curiosity. But then, one of them, Mrs. Henderson from across the street, walked over. "You did the right thing," she said softly. "It takes courage to stand up for yourself, especially against your own family." Her words sank into me like warm sunlight breaking through cold clouds. That night, I sat at my desk and finally hit upload. The video wasn't angry or bitter. It was the truth, told plainly. I didn't know what would happen next. Maybe people would rally behind me. Maybe others would try to tear me down. But I knew one thing. I had survived. And survival was only the beginning. Because now, I had a voice. And I wasn't afraid to use it.